we were just kind of walking off the field, and he was like, "So what you gonna do?" I said, "I'm gonna come back next year." He was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm excited. Let's go to Atlanta." And I was like, "Yes, sir. Let's make it happen."
Welcome to the Talkin' VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. You guys know over the last couple of months, been talking a lot, made a couple of videos on Hendon Hooker and his opportunity for a Heisman Trophy campaign. Some of you guys agree, some of you guys disagree. You talk about how there's no way they're going to put a Tennessee player into the mix. Well, Josh Pate over at 24/7 Sports chimed in on it, so we're going to get his comments, kind of break that down. But for me, it is the reason it is so important, and it's not necessarily about whether or not he actually gets it done, but it is the importance for recruiting. It's something similar, you know, to the NFL draft. Josh Heupel being able to talk about putting VAWLS Jones into the NFL, putting Javonte Payton on an NFL roster. Cedric Tillman is likely going to be heading to the NFL in just 1 year. So it is another tool that Josh Heupel can use on the recruiting trail. But we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about Josh Pate and what he had to say. Before we do, as always, do me a favor, go ahead and smash that like button just below the video. It's free, it's quick, it's easy. It helps the channel. If you're new to the Talkin' VAWLS Network, welcome. We're not experts, we're not insiders. We are fans just like you, so if you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe, click that bell for notifications. You won't miss out when we go live or when we drop a video. You guys know the catchphrase by now. For the fans, by the fans. The boys over at Volunteer Utility Services are fans just like you and I. They handle all commercial and residential excavation needs, utilities, septic tanks, irrigation installs, dog fences, and more. They also do landscaping, masonry, concrete work, and junk removal. Give them a call, 865-320-6194. That's 865-320-6194. Check them out on social media. I'll drop the links to that in the description below. For the fans, by the fans. Show some love for not only an East Tennessee local business, but also a member of the Talkin' VAWLS family. Volunteer Utility Services. So let's go ahead and jump into the comments here. Again, late kick. It says here, late kick blitz. Hendon Hooker can be a legitimate Heisman candidate. Now, some people disagreed with me a couple of months ago when I said that same thing. Put it together. Let's go. Hendon Hooker for Heisman in 2022. But let's see what Josh Pate had to say about Hendon Hooker.
Dorina put us a hashtag out here, Hooker for Heisman. And I can only imagine what a lacrosse fan thinks that means. But Hooker for Heisman will actually be a thing this year. That is her bold prediction. This is a 4 to me. I don't think it's that bold at all. Hendon Hooker was well on his way to establishing himself in that vein last year. I mean, he wasn't Bryce Young, who ultimately won the award, but he was 4th in yards per completion in FBS last year. Of course, he had the 31-3 touchdown to interception ratio, had 600 yards on the ground to boot, so you got the dual threat capability there. Here's what would have to happen.
Before we get into what would have to happen, when we look back to last year, and by no means am I saying that Hendon Hooker should have been in the mix for a Heisman Trophy campaign last season. Obviously, going into the year, we didn't even know who the starting quarterback was going to be. You had the Bailey bros yelling and screaming about Harrison Bailey. You had the Milton militia, and then Hendon Hooker ultimately comes in and takes over the job. And when you look at his numbers from last year, and that's, you know, obviously, he was at the top of the SEC for quarterback rating. One of the most impressive stats is his touchdown to interception ratio that Josh Pate just mentioned there, 31 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. But you got to remember the fact that when you're talking about stats and numbers, and not only just stats, but padding stats, putting up Xbox-type numbers in order to kind of kickstart this Heisman Trophy campaign, you got to remember he only had 1 passing attempt against Bowling Green because Joe Milton started that Bowling Green game. Joe Milton started that Pitt game. Hendon Hooker came in late. The same for the Florida game. Joe Milton started those games. That would have been an opportunity for Hendon Hooker to not only pad some stats, put up more Xbox type numbers, particularly in that Bowling Green game, but it could have changed the outcome of a couple of games. I'm not going to go on record and say that I think Tennessee beats Florida if Hendon Hooker starts that game. I think they're more competitive against Florida. Joe Milton really didn't play a whole lot anyway, 2 of 8 for 54 yards in that game before Hendon Hooker came in. But I definitely think that Pitt game is a completely different outcome if Hendon Hooker starts from the jump. But again, talking about stats, talking about padding numbers, that's something worth looking at for his overall statistics from last year. But let's hear what Josh Pate says what Hendon Hooker has to do in order to be a legitimate Heisman candidate for 2022.
For Hendon Hooker to be a Heisman Trophy finalist, they would have to probably start off 4-0, which is doable. They got a trip to Pitt, and they got a home date against Florida. Those are 2 games where they may be slight dogs, but they won't be overwhelming underdogs. If they can win those 2 games, they go to LSU at 4-0. From that point, you've got a lot more attention on the program than you would have had, and thus a lot more attention on Hendon Hooker, who, if you're 4-0, has probably played pretty well. Then what they have to do is they have to go 9-3 or better for the season. And in the games they lose, it better be to Alabama and Georgia, teams like that, and they have to shine in trail mode. Meaning, if they're trailing Alabama 34-17, Hendon Hooker needs to be throwing the ball in catch-up mode, and they need to be putting up big statistical numbers even if they lose the game, because at the end of the year, you know as well as I do, it's just a stat award. No one really compartmentalizes or contextualizes, well, yeah, he had a lot of passing yards, but what if I told you 38% of them came in garbage time? They don't even dive that. Do you know who votes on this stuff? So if they go 9-3 or better, because the team's got to be a certain level of good, and Hendon Hooker shines in catch-up mode in the games they're trailing, and they start 4-0 to get the early national attention, yes, he could be a Heisman Trophy finalist. He's in the right offense. He's playing for the right guy.
Interesting that Josh Pate talks about those first 4 games, because that is something we mentioned on the recent live stream. I mentioned it in a video talking about the pressure on Josh Heupel, just how important those first 4 games of the year are. And Josh Pate there saying that Tennessee, all 4 games very winnable. I think Tennessee's favored in all 4 of those games. If you can get out of the gate hot, get out of the gate 4-0, go on the road to play LSU. I've talked about how that's no gimme. That's going to be a tough football game. Tennessee actually is the underdog in that game, as they should be. I think it's pretty much a toss-up, but you are going on the road in the SEC, and that's good for something. And I know LSU has a new coaching staff, and all the changes and the turmoil that went on at LSU, they still have football talent down there, and again, on the road in the SEC. But if Tennessee comes out of the gates 4-0, Josh Pate said something very, very, very particular there about national attention. If they come out of the gate 4-0, the national media is going to be talking about Tennessee. There is going to be a buzz around Knoxville. We're already there. We are already there. But you and I, we are like-minded. We bleed orange. We are obsessed. It's the middle of May, and we're talking about Tennessee football because that's what we do. But the national media doesn't take notice. The national media doesn't start to run with it until there is a certain buzz and momentum. Tennessee has to prove it on the field of play. And, going back to the Rodney Garner quote that I play a lot at the beginning of the videos, they didn't come here to win 7 games. He talked about overachieving, but they're not here to win 7. They're here to win championships. And until you do that, until you prove it on the field of play, the national media is not going to take notice. The Heisman Trophy watch list is out the window. That's not going to happen. 9 games is the number, and I think if Tennessee gets out of the gate 4-0, I think they have a really, really good opportunity of getting to 9 wins. I've said multiple times on the channel, my prediction is 8-4, but I can see this team beating every team on the schedule outside of Alabama and Georgia, and I know a lot of people want to talk about Georgia and the amount of talent that they lost to the draft and that you can't just replace it. Yes, you can. When you are backloaded with 5 stars across the board, that's what sets Alabama and Georgia apart from everybody else in the SEC, because they can send so many guys to the NFL draft and then it's just plug and play. Put another 5-star in and let's go back to Atlanta, because that's what they do, because Georgia has kind of followed that same blueprint as Alabama. And yes, things are changing. Times they are a-changing with NIL and the way things are working in college football. But again, you get out of the gates 4-0, there's going to be some hype, there's going to be some momentum, there's going to be a lot of talk going into that LSU game. People are going to be talking about, can Hendon Hooker get the win on the road? I think Hendon Hooker is a legitimate Heisman Trophy finalist. I think he can do it. If Tennessee can get to 9 wins, Josh Pate agrees. Josh Pate says he thinks they can get to 9 wins. But you guys know what to do. Hit that comment section. Let me know your thoughts. We've already talked about this a couple of different times, but I wanted to bring it back because of the comments from Josh Pate. Love what that guy does over there at 24/7 Sports. But hit that comment section. Let me know your thoughts. If you have not done so yet, make sure you smash that thumbs up before you get out of here and go check out our brand new merchandise. That's right. We've got new merchandise. Go to bonfire.com/store/Talkin VAWLS. You can see there we got beat Bama, Florida, and Georgia, the big three. If you guys like these, if these go off the shelves pretty quick, we may add other teams if that's what you guys want. We're always listening, trying to give you guys what you want. But check out the merch, different styles, designs, colors. Bonfire.com/store/Talkin VAWLS. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. This is the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Go Big Orange.